Good morning, everyone. Coach Q here. Today I decided I was going to talk about the InBody assessment, and I wanted to tackle this because sometimes I see clients getting on the scale and they're looking at this, they're reading it, and they're interpreting it, but they're not really sure what to do with it. And also, and forgive me for saying this, but I also see some trainers explaining it to their clients and their athletes, and they're leaving out some valuable information. So I decided, you know what, I think it's time to break this down and talk about it. I did a lot of research on this to better understand it for my athletes so that I provide them a better product. So I thought I'd share the knowledge. So let's break it down. So first we're looking at a client here who's a little over 5'9", male, and it shows the date and time that this was taken. So as you can see, this is broken up into several sections. You have the body composition analysis, the muscle fat analysis, obesity analysis, segmental lean analysis, ECW, TBW analysis, and body composition history. And then on the right, you have some information there that talks about body fat mass, lean body mass, and visceral fat level, as well as basal metabolic rate, also known as BMR. And I thought, you know what, let's break this down. So here we are. We're going to talk about each one of these sections. I'm going to go through them, and I'll try and highlight them as we go through. So the body composition analysis. So what we have here is total body water, TBW, which is broken up into intracellular water and extracellular water. So not all InBody scales will provide you an ECW/TBW, and I think, quite honestly, this is a very valuable tool. When I get down to the ECW, TBW at the very bottom, I'll give you an example of that. So let's talk about this. The total body water. Like I said, this includes your ICW and ECW. So what is it? Your ICW, the intracellular water, this is water inside your cells linked to your muscle health. Your extracellular water, that's water outside your cells, often related to inflammation or swelling. So as you progress through these, I always tell my athletes, hey, keep this first InBody, because at the bottom, as you continue to come in and we do our analysis every 4 to 6 weeks, the body composition history will continue to track. But what's not tracking, well, I guess it is if you have a InBody scale that does show the ECW, TBW. But some InBody scales don't always show that last part, because that's a little bit more expensive scale. So I always tell my athletes, hey, save this first one, because you can compare it with some of these other numbers at the top that aren't tracked in the body composition history at the bottom with some other InBody scales. The dry lean mass. So the dry lean mass is the weight of your muscle tissue without water. And then your body fat mass, the total amount of fat in your body. All of these comprise the body weight. So you see here the body weight's 228.3 pounds. And if you break it up, the ICW makes up 81 pounds. Extracellular water is 46 pounds. And then your this person's dry lean mass is 47.6 pounds. And his body fat mass is 53 pounds. That makes up the 228.3 pounds. This is going to be a tool that we use to track and figure out where we need to go. Okay, so a common mistake here, trainers often focus solely on body fat, ignoring your water balance. Like I said, the ECW TBW ratio. If this ratio increases, we got to start watching that. A normal range is 0.36 to 0.39. As this number goes up, it may indicate inflammation, dehydration, or poor recovery. Trainers, please address this first before pushing harder workouts. That's why it's there. It's for you to help you understand what your client is doing in the gym and how they're progressing. Encourage hydration, proper recovery, and monitoring inflammation through diet or rest. Okay, so a balanced ICW, ECW, again, we want to have that number closer to 0.36. This ratio indicates good hydration and recovery. Excess ECW might indicate poor recovery or overtraining, especially in athletes. Now, I saw a video or a picture the other day, and one of the trainers posted their InBody of their client and how proud they were of their progress. muscle mass was going up, body fat was going down, weight, I can't remember what the weight was, but what wasn't told was the ECW, TBW on the video was actually going up. It was above 0.38. So right there's an indication of poor recovery, overtraining, maybe not enough hydration, but something that has to be looked at, and maybe take a day or two off from training and check that ECW, TBW. Again, this is why this is all important in understanding what we're talking about. So let's go to the muscle fat analysis now. The second section. This is where we see how the client's weight breaks down. We have your weight and your total body mass, your skeletal muscle mass, SMMM, which is your lean muscle mass critical for metabolism and strength. And then underneath that is your body fat mass, the fat we aim to reduce for better health and overall performance. So I always tell my athletes, look, I don't really care about your weight. What I care about is the body fat percentage, which we'll be coming up to in a second. And the muscle mass. The muscle mass, I would love to get your muscle mass up, but that's all going to be dependent upon whether or not what type of training you're doing and what type of nutrition plan you're on. If you have a drastic nutrition plan where you're cutting calories, your muscle mass may begin to drop. Okay, and yeah, your body fat will drop as well, and your body fat mass will drop, but at what cost? So you've got to weigh that when you're explaining this and when you're breaking this down to present a nutrition plan to an athlete or to a client in general. All right, so let's go to the obesity analysis. Oh wait, some key insights. So if your weight decreases and muscle mass also drops, you're likely in too large of a calorie deficit, or you're lacking adequate protein in resistance training. So protein is so important in training and recovery. Don't forget that. So now let's talk about if your weight stays the same, but your percent body fat drops and your muscle mass increases, you're on the right track. You're doing something right. Your plan is right. Your nutrition is right. This shows fat loss and muscle gain. So again, you're on the right track. Whether your trainers got your plan going in the right track or you have your own plan, you're good. So that's what you want to see. You want to see your muscle mass going up and your body fat going down. Your weight may not fluctuate. You got to understand that, because your muscle mass is displacing that body fat. So you may not see a weight loss, and this is why I always tell people, don't worry about the weight. Worry about that percent body fat. All right, the obesity analysis, BMI versus percent body fat. All right, so here's the deal. BMI is almost useless for active clients or any athlete. And it's like I just stated a while ago. It's height to weight ratio that doesn't differentiate between muscle and fat. Instead, it focused primarily on percent body fat, which tells us how much of the client's weight is fat. That's why I always tell you athletes, hey, let's focus on your PBF. Let's not focus on your weight. And matter of fact, one of my clients last night, and that's what I was telling her, I says, look, let's not worry about your weight. Let's worry about bringing your body fat down. And you'll find that you're going to become more agile on the playing field. For clients losing fat, aim to gradually decrease your PBF without losing muscle mass. For you athletes, let's lower your percent body fat while maintaining muscle mass. This will improve your speed, agility, and endurance. I've got that plan for you. We've just got to get you in there and lay it out for you. So let's move on to the next section, segmental lean analysis. Here in this section, we're going to break down muscle distribution across arms, legs, and trunk. And this is another reason why I tell my athletes to always save this first one. Now, what we could do is we can measure it with a tape measure as well, and then tape measure through time and have that on paper as well. But here's another way to track it. So the key insight here is imbalances between limbs are common but should be addressed to prevent injuries. So your left arm versus your right arm, we want to see that they want to be pretty much in the same number. All right, we're always going to have one side that's stronger, and we're always going to have one side that's bigger. But so when we're training, well, let me finish first. And for you athletes, symmetry is critical for optimal performance and reduced injury risk. We want to use this to target. We want to use this data to target weaker areas in training. So what I always tell my athletes and my clients is, hey, let's when we start a rep, if we're doing unilateral training, say we're doing a dumbbell overhead press, one arm at a time, start with your weakest arm. If you're doing a lunge, start with your weakest leg. If you're doing a unilateral dumbbell bench press where you're doing one arm at a time, start with your weakest side, because your plan may call for you to do 4 sets of 8 reps, but on your left arm, at about an 80% or let's say 75% intensity, and your left arm's just not ready to do 75%, and you're only able to get 5 reps, but your right arm, you can pump out 10, 12 reps at 75, 80%. So once you do your strong side or your weak side, and you can only get 5 reps, then switch to your right side and do that same amount of reps until you're able to get up. What I would recommend here is then drop the weight, the intensity, to maybe 70%, 65%, get some more reps in, build that strength, and to the point where you can actually increase that intensity on the left arm to be able to finish a 4x8 at 75%. Segmental lean analysis is important in creating a training plan, so use that wisely. All right, the ECW TBW analysis. This is a big focus for me, and I don't see a lot of people paying attention to it. A lot of you, forgive me, I said comma. A lot of you disregard this. You won't really cover it, and I actually, on the previous InBody that I had access to, I would concentrate and focus on this, and I'd talk to my athletes about it. And more often than not, when in the training that we were doing, I'd see their number drop down closer to 0.36, and that's where we want to get. You do not want to see that number start climbing to 0.39. So the ECW TBW ratio analysis. This ratio shows the balance between water outside your cells, ECW, and total body water, TBW. A normal range, like I said in the beginning, is 0.36 to 0.39. Any higher ratios can indicate inflammation, dehydration, or overtraining. Yes, I did mention that in the beginning, but again, like I said, this is important to understand. For those of you that use InBody and have a scale that have access to ECW TBW, please pay attention to this. Do not ignore this. If your ECW TBW rises, scale back on training intensity and focus on hydration and recovery strategies before progressing further. In other words, either do a week of deloading or just take a couple days off from the gym to allow your body to recover and see what that ECW TBW will do when you come back to the gym. And best thing to do is to do it InBody early in the morning if you have access, and after you wake up and after you've gone to the bathroom. That's going to give you a true analysis. As the day wears on and you don't get to do this until later in the day after you've eaten several meals and you've drinking 3/4 gallon of water or whatever, these numbers are going to be a little off. So always try to do your InBody at the same exact time when you do these, because your numbers will be consistent then. All right, again, so like I said, please do not ignore your ECW TBW. All right, so the body composition history. This section tracks changes across multiple weigh-ins. This is the analysis right here. When my clients come in or my athletes come in, every time we come in, this is going to track trends. So if weight and muscle mass and PBW, or percent body fat, decrease, you're likely too aggressive on the calorie deficit. You're losing both fat and muscle. Adjust with more protein and strength training. If your percent body fat drops while your muscle mass increases or stays steady, you're in a perfect position. You have a perfect plan. You have a perfect nutrition plan. This indicates fat loss and muscle retention or growth. If both your body fat and your muscle mass increase, you're likely overeating without sufficient training intensity. In other words, you're going to have to lighten load. Tighten up your nutrition and push harder in your strength sessions. So like I said, lighten up your load. You may want to recheck your nutrition plan. You may be eating too much. Your macros are out of whack. And that's why I've done the research on this, you should always adjust your macros on a 10-pound, if you're losing weight, on a 10 pounds of loss. The body fat, I'd monitor that, and that's why I do these InBodies every 4 to 6 weeks now, because I have to check this, and I have to maintain some consistency here to ensure that both body fat and muscle mass aren't going up at the same time. I want to see a divergence of the two. So if both PBF and SS, your muscle mass increase, again, you're likely overeating without sufficient training intensity. Oh yeah, I just read that. I just did that one. So finally, if your percent body fat and your muscle mass both decrease, but weight increases, this scenario suggests a few potential issues that should be addressed. So a possible explanation is your ECW. Like I said, ECW, ICW is important, the TBW, total body water. What's happening here is if you have an increase of ECW, extracellular water, this can cause overall weight gain while masking fat loss and muscle retention. You ever hear the term, I'm holding water? Yeah, it applies here. Why this happens and why this number has to be monitored. Inflammation from overtraining or injury. You may have something wrong with you that your body's trying to recover from, and it's actually trying to preserve. Poor recovery, lack of sleep. All you young athletes that are currently in middle school and high school, minimum 8 hours a day. Those of you that are going to be playing travel sports this summer, highly recommend minimum 8 hours. You may find, and parents, you may find your student athletes sleeping 10 hours a night. And you know, it's funny, growing up and having young kids, I used to get upset at my kids because they were sleeping so long. I didn't really realize or understand the power of sleep. So let them sleep. Okay, finally, you may also have high sodium intake or poor hydration balance. Drink that water. But you also have to monitor that sodium. You don't want to have a lot of sodium, but you do want to have some sodium because you want to retain that water in your muscle. Another good source for this is creatine and electrolytes. And I posted on my Instagram the other day about creatine HCl and creatine monohydrate and how to use it before a workout and post workout. The same thing applies to you athletes in sport, especially during the hot summer and if you're in tournaments playing outside. So what should you do? Monitor that ECW TBW ratio. If it's high, focus on improving recovery, hydration, and reducing training intensity. Inaccurate testing conditions. What's happening? Testing after a meal, workout, or during dehydration could skew results. Like I said, always try and do your InBody at the same time every time you get on it. The best time to do it is in the morning after you've gone to the bathroom and you are you have an empty stomach. Why this happens? Body water levels fluctuate depending on hydration, food intake, or recent physical activity. So what should you do? Ensure consistent testing conditions. Test first thing in the morning. I've stated that twice, or at the same time of day. Avoid heavy meals, exercise, or excess fluid before testing. If you're doing this at the end of your workday, or you're going to the gym and you have to do what you have to do, and your numbers are going to be a little off, that's okay. But at least this is an idea of where you are currently at. All right, so if you have increased fat-free mass, non-muscle weight, what's happening here is you have an increase in non-muscle mass, such as fluids or organ weight. Could explain the weight gain while muscle mass and percent body fat decrease. Why it happens? It's a sudden dietary change. For example, high-carb refeed. This could lead to glycogen storage, which will pull water into your muscles. Again, remember that term, holding water? There you go. So what should you do? Track your trends over weeks, not just one test. Ensure your trainers, ensure your athletes or clients aren't making drastic dietary changes before weigh-ins. Hey, I get it. I understand it. It's hard to eat consistently unless you are a competitor who's doing bikini or bodybuilding and you are consistent with it and that's all you do every day. For you moms, you dads, you athletes, you're in school, you're at work, yeah, it's hard, I get it. But the biggest thing is trying to eat your macros, your protein, your carbs, and your fats that are placed in front of you throughout the day. You don't have to eat these exact meals, but at least get those macros in. All right, muscle catabolism with fat loss. What happens here? Muscle loss is occurring at a faster rate than fat loss, which may not immediately reflect in a weight change. So why does this happen? You have severe calorie restrictions, inadequate protein intake, insufficient resistance training. That's just a poor plan, poor nutrition plan, poor training plan. What should you do? adjust caloric intake to a smaller deficit, 10 to 15% below your total daily energy expenditure, your TDEE for short. Increase your protein intake to 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of lean body mass, and then emphasize resistance training in your program. For you trainers, analyze that ECW TBW ratio. If it's elevated, prioritize recovery, hydration, and reduce training intensity temporarily. Reassess nutrition. Ensure protein intake is sufficient. Avoid overly aggressive calorie deficits. Focus on resistance training. Incorporate progressive overload to stimulate muscle growth and retention. And finally, maintain consistency in your testing. Okay, so the right side. The BMR. When it comes to your nutrition plan, I use the basal metabolic rate as a baseline. That is your baseline. That is the minimum number of calories your body burns at rest. Okay, essentially the energy that's needed for basic body functions. For you athletes and all you clients out there, knowing your BMR will help you tailor your nutrition plan. Eating below your BMR may result in muscle loss, while eating above it, paired with proper training, supports muscle gain. One thing here is, if you are eating below your BMR, your body will start storing that as energy, and that's where you get those love handles. For fat loss, create a caloric deficit of 10 to 20% below your TDEE, and ensure the 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. For you athletes, slightly increase above TDE to fuel your intense training sessions and muscle recovery. So now, although I say that, there are some of you athletes who I'm currently working with right now. We're trying to gradually help you lose some of your weight because, for instance, wrestlers, you're trying to get down to a weight class now rather than waiting the 3 to 4 weeks before season starts to start losing that weight. That's not fun. So if you're on one of my plans now and you are on a 6-month plan, we are doing that now. So we're eating but just below your TDEE. Okay, so I have you in a slight deficit. However, I have your training plan to assist in helping to ensure that you're not losing muscle mass. We're working on losing weight. Although I stress body fat, in this case for wrestlers, yes, weight is important. All right, so let's give a real life example of incorrect usage. Let's look at a common mistake we've all seen or heard. So a trainer notices a weight loss, but the client also had decreased muscle mass and body fat while ECW, TBW increased. What went wrong? Well, first, the calorie deficit was too aggressive, leading to muscle loss. Second, poor hydration or overtraining caused an increase in your ECW, TBW. And the client likely wasn't eating enough protein or recovering adequately. Athletes, that's why I have you on a 3 or 4 day training plan now. I don't have you on 5-day, 6-day training plans any longer because I have to allow for recovery. You're still growing, okay? Your body will recover a lot faster than somebody older than you. However, athletically, I have to ensure that your body grows appropriately. So a solution, focus on proper nutrition, prioritize strength training, and address recovery before reducing calories any further. All right, so for you athletes, maintaining or increasing muscle mass while lowering body fat and improves your performance and reduces injury risk. That's what I explained to a couple of my clients this week and their parents. I want to aim to lose your body fat to increase your performance on the field, okay? So overall, for general clients, those that are not athletes, that are just in the gym trying to work aesthetically or just lose some weight or body fat, whatever you're trying to do, this approach leads to sustainable fat loss and better overall health. The InBody form isn't just about numbers, it's a roadmap to help you reach your goals smarter and faster. So if you have any other questions about the InBody and how to create a deficit or increase in calories or a maintenance, please hit me up. Parents, I also help adults find themselves, again, if you know what I mean. And athletes, I want to help you perform better on the field. That's why a part of my plans include nutrition plans now, not just a training plan, because I want you to be able to perform at peak proficiency on and off the field, including in class. That's all I have. I hope you have a great day, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much.